Put out them Yang greens. Come on with them Georgia beans. We in a hurry. Yeah. So when you got the road.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakah Hakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom also to the hopefully elect as well. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You watch TV. I was watching Netflix, and they was going into the lockup. I'm sure a brother seen it. A lot of people seen it. And this is kind of impromptu, so kind of just going with the spirit with this. So I'm kind of going into, like my past of being in trouble, okay? Being on the streets, being homeless, being in foster care, not knowing, my family, parents. It's a long road to get to where you need to be. And even getting where you need to be is not always where you need to be. So just because, okay, I wake up, I found out that I'm an Israelite, that's not good enough. Okay, following the truth is what's good enough. Now I'm going to the lesson or testimony, whatever you want to call it, and I was just going into how this system was designed to trap you. Okay, that's what court means, game, pretty much. And it's and being in it enough, in and out enough, I kind of understand and know the system. I know how it works. I know that they have techniques and tactics to try to break people. Okay. I know that they'll throw you in prison and give you a high-ass bail just to get you to talk. Or, I've seen all these tactics, and I've seen things that, this devil does, man. And prison really is nothing more than big business, okay? It's an entrapment, okay? Without the prisons, which some people do deserve, a lot of Jake do deserve to be locked up, but because of the destruction of our communities, without the the drugs, the drug addiction, number one, the fathers, number two, and not just to say, that just because you came up rough that you're going to be a bad person, or you came up good that you're going to be a nice person. It doesn't matter. That it just depends on the spirit of where the Lord leads you. Okay, but first let's get a scripture. This is Isaiah 10 verse 1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. And these unrighteous decrees that they prescribe, okay, is bails, number one. Okay, you're innocent till proven guilty, when it's totally the opposite. Okay, you're really guilty until you prove your innocence. Okay, so we can clearly see that the so-called white man has an unrighteous decree. Now, when you go into decree, it means I believe the forcibility of the law. Now, if they claim that you put your hand over put your hand on the Bible and uphold the law, so shall it be done, as they say. Do you uphold the law? But they don't. They have nothing to do with the God we worship, the power we worship. Okay. Another thing they'll do, okay, is they'll call Trump charges. They'll charge you for one thing. Let's say you've been charged for a hit and run. Okay. I'm just giving examples, throwing it out there. They'll charge you for vehicular, well, hopefully, Lord willing, you don't kill anybody, but they'll charge you for misuse of the vehicle. They'll just line up several things. Okay, they'll put you with unauthorized use of vehicle. They'll put you with damaged property of vehicle. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if you kill somebody, vehicular manslaughter, murder in the second degree, and so forth and so forth. And this is what they'll do. And what they'll do is they'll give you 15 charges just to make one charge stick, okay, or two. And then they'll tell you to plea out, okay. So you're looking at 15 years per count. So if you're looking at 50 years, they'll tell you to plea down to 20, okay. This is all organized sales. This is the same thing they do in the supermarkets, the same thing they do in auctions, the same thing they've done with us in slavery. They'll do what you call a bait and switch. They'll also do what you call a markup, a write-up. They'll mark it high and then bring it down to the low. So you'll say, okay, when you go buy canned goods or food, you'll see the price there, and then they'll slash the price and mark it and put, okay, you can buy it at a cheaper price, and you'll agree to buy it cheaper because it's cheaper than what it was. And this is the same thing with the prison system. They'll give you a high-ass bail. They'll give you a high-ass charge. They'll give you more time, and they'll say, well, we'll plea you down to a few years. Okay, so you were looking at 20 years, you could do 5. And the average Jake will just take it because it's a whole lot better to him than what he was seeing. And that's just another way to entrap you, to get you hooked up in the system. And once you get hooked up in the system, it's almost no returning. I mean, it's like a spell, because now you have a felony. If you have a felony, now you have a felony. Even if you have a misdemeanor, when your record is checked, they'll see you just got out of prison, or you've just been arrested or convicted or something. Because you could be arrested as long as you're not convicted. They'll set you up with a PBJ, probation before judgment. But what they're saying is that's still a conviction. So now you have a conviction, and now you go to try to look for work, and then nobody trusts you. Okay? So it's an ongoing cycle. So what do? You get on parole, you're on probation, and it's all a big trap. So now you're courted in this game, and it's one big circular cycle. Okay? So now what do? You go back out and do the same thing you did to get back in there, because that's all you knew before you went in the first place. So now that you're trying to make a change, it's almost impossible. And then it becomes comfortable. Okay? 3 hots in a cot. But do you know what they do? They'll have you work for cheap labor. Okay? So now jobs that are, and notice in economies, in cities that got bad economies, the first thing they do is build prisons. Why? Because out of cheap labor, and these Jews are behind this, the fake Jews. They're behind that. Okay? So when you have a bad economy, you can pay the workers $1.50 an hour. You're allowed to legally pay them below minimum wage. Now, according to the law, you shouldn't get minimum wage. I mean, you should at least be able to get minimum wage. But they won't do that, man. That's another unrighteous decree. Okay? This is what the devil does, man. This is Psalm 58:2. Ye in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. And that's what this devil does, man. All he is about making profits. And to get on a bigger, a larger scale of understanding, it's those Jews, man. Those Jews are about, they were loan sharks, okay, before they became in power like they are, man. Okay? The Rothschilds, the Bowers, the Rockefellers, they were nothing but hustlers, man. It was money marketers. And they found a way to use people to do it. Okay? Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. That's part of the thick clay. That's part of America's debt. Putting our people on auction blocks, man. Now, when you go into, and I want to make this quick, when you go into a lot of these Christians who say, we don't fit the biblical Israelite prophecies, it has nothing to do with us, But nowhere in the history of the world, even today, is anybody fitting these prophecies on that level. There's nobody. So if we're not the Israelites, then why are we catching more hell than anybody else on the planet, man? Okay? So if the true biblical Israelites was going to be, as the Bible say, they were going to be put in captivity, and they was going to get all the hell that they got, right? And they got all that hell. They were supposed to have it worse than this. So you're telling me they're still living better than the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, but they're the Israelites? Okay, so what kind of sense does that make? The Lord said He's going to put the Israelites lower than everybody. Okay? So what kind of sense does that make, man? It doesn't make sense. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Okay, now when you go into the Native Americans, so I say Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, okay, they're part of it too. Okay? So you can't rule out them as well. As a nation of people, we're the only ones fitting these curses on that kind of level. And that's just plain. You know you can't get around that. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 19. It says, "Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed thou shalt be when thou goest out." Going down about the city, going in and going out. Well, that's prison. You're cursed when you come in there, and when you leave, you cursed. You know why? Because you're going to go right back up in that bitch, man. Or if you do happen to escape going back up in there, your reputation is ruined. Your record is ruined. Okay? And they're about giving people second chances and making helping people with their lives. But once you get a felony on your record or a record, there is no second chance. Now you have to go to the obstacles to get it expunged, but even on expungement, they still keep a part of that on your record. Okay? This whole video is to prove, again, the so-called white man is the devil. Okay? That's all he is. When you see those, when I was locked up, when you see those them trucks keep backing up, and you hear that beeping all night, letting Jake off those out of those vans, those ain't nothing but cargoes, man. That's why they call them cargo vans. Okay? They ain't nothing but cargo vans, man. They ain't nothing but slave vans, man, like slave ships. They're doing the same thing. And you know who was in the back of that? Coming out of there? Jake. Jake is so bugged out, he's almost forced to be a prison, okay, an inmate. And then our women are left to what? Do what? Okay? Lesbianism, heathens, or whatever else that they do. So our women can't respect us because we're not in power. That's why we teach at Great Millstone, don't be worried about no fucking women, man. Okay? I don't care who they are, they can never fully respect you. Even in so-called in the truth. You think they're going to fully respect you. No, they can't. Because you don't have the power, man. Deuteronomy, let's go to verse 25. It says, "The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all kingdoms of the earth." Okay? And that's what happened, man. So we're even all over the earth, okay, we're being arrested and put away. Okay? Now this has to be talking about today, because America wasn't discovered at that time. So you can't go on and say, oh, that was talking about Rome and this or that. Okay? I mean, you know, the history repeats itself, but right here, these scriptures talking about today as well. As you know, when you go back to 70 AD, when we fled. But now the kingdoms of the earth is the whole globe at this point, man. Okay? Let's go to 48. I'm going to try to make it quick. Verse 48. "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things." Want to get bailed out. Okay? Jake want the music careers. Jake selling drugs, selling crack, selling meth, selling heroin, selling anything he can to get up on the top level and be a rapper or a football player or athlete, drug dealer. Okay? And it goes on to say, "And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee." Okay? This is all talking about what you see in the day. Jake still had a yoke of iron around his feet, man. And that yoke of iron is still around his neck. Because you will have 50 goddamn inmates in there with one guard. And Jake just sits there. Which he's not supposed to fight against him at that point. But to be able to take one Edomite and control 50 Negroes, man. You are destroyed, man. Okay? You're destroyed. And then you got coons and people saying that you're supposed to love them, man. Which means you're supposed to love this society. Okay? Let's go to verse 67. Okay, let me see what time I'm working with. Well, let me get let's go to verse 67. First I had a small clip that was talking about Indian country today. Let me go on and read this clip. It says, American Indians have complicated relationship with African Americans in general, and their freedom shall struggle in particular. See, just to get a little deeper, I'm trying to make this quick. To get a little deeper into it, the so-called white man has put the African Americans, which is you Israelites, against the northern tribe against the southern tribe, and even northern tribe against northern tribe, and southern tribe against southern tribe. When you do the history and the research, the so-called white man even put the natives against each other. So you get some people say they're not the true Israelites because they had blacks and slaves, of course. But they had each other in slavery. I got news for you. Jake had Jake in slavery. Because Esau, he understands the divide and conquer. Says, we have in common that we inhabit a nation founded on theft of Indian land and black labor at the time when land and labor were the primary sources of wealth. Those twin thefts have created a paradise for the descendants of thieves and multi-generation crapshoot for the descendants of the victims. So this is why you have the heads and the tails. This is why the white man is prevalent and looked up upon, and we're looked down on. This is where the white man, because he has the money and the wealth, obviously is going to look up upon. This is also why the so-called Negroes that deal and hang with the white man and get his wealth, like your athletes, your coons, that love the so-called white man, he wants to escape his condition. And honestly, when you really get deeper into it, if you're a two-thirder and you are not for your culture, this is the first thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a coon and go sit with the white man. Why not? You ain't doing nothing for your community. You love the white man. You're not following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Bible. So that's probably a good thing for you to do. Okay? Now let's get one last scripture, Deuteronomy 28:67. I'd like to have more time to go further into this, but I don't like to do two videos too long. It says, in the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even? Okay? So when you look, you're in the time where you're looking to say, well, damn, is it evening? Okay? And at evening thou shalt say, would God it were morning? Okay? That's hard bondage, man. I remember, okay, when you're locked up or you put somewhere in a cellar, you don't know whether it's day or night, man. You don't know. You wake up and like, is it the daytime? Is it morning time? You don't know shit. Okay? Okay, and that's the curses and the punishment, man. So I'm thankful through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua as I came to the truth. I cleared all that out, and the Lord could have kept me in prison. Okay? Facing a lot of time. Okay? For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And it was ironic because after my whole case so-called disappeared, the what you call a lawyer, he passed away. So we could see, I saw in the spirit he did his job, man. Okay? And that's to get me to this point. So to sum it up for you Christians, and I say you Christians or people who don't believe in the Israelite so-called movement, this is saving a lot of Jake from being in trouble. Okay? This truth has helped definitely all of us that's in this truth. Everybody got different stories, but it's helped a lot of us people who had drug addiction or selling drugs, because selling drugs is just like drug addiction, just like using it damn near. It's not as bad, but it's like using it, okay? Has helped you from committing adultery, has helped you from stealing, coveting. All those things coming into the truth helps. But the church don't teach that. The church don't sit up there and teach the law, statutes, and commandments to help the community. That's all they had to do. But they don't do that. Why? Because they of Satan. Okay? It's not of the Lord. That's my take on that. Shalom.